Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart Healing Conversations, a place where we normalize the emotions that come with navigating life, a place where grief is honored, healing is possible, and hope gently finds its way back into our hearts. Whether today finds you carrying grief, searching for hope, or simply needing a quiet moment to breathe, we're honored you're here. I'm Dawn, and I have Janna, a fellow grief recovery method specialist, with me today, and we are going to start talking about some of the myths around grief, some of the things that we learn in our younger years that tend to keep us from healing because we don't have really healthy tools to cope with our emotions. And so today we are going to introduce It Just Takes Time. So Janna, I would love to hear how it just takes time has shown up in your life and how it has kept you stuck in so many aspects instead of healing your heart.
Yeah, Dawn, this one is one that I know I've heard on many occasions is just give it time.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of my biggest examples has been in all the child loss that I've had. I've suffered many miscarriages as well as stillbirths. And so early on, especially in the younger years when I'm first trying to have children, my first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And
Mm-hmm.
that was completely devastating to me. But what I was told was, oh, well, you're still young. You still have time. Just give it time, a few months, you can try again. Or you're going to feel better because, it wasn't really a pregnancy. Just give it time. You'll forget about it. It'll be okay. And sure, I can do that. I can move forward and try to push it behind me and think it'll get better in a few months and I won't worry about it. But months go by and it was still my first child. I still have lots of memories about that entire process and it still hits, you still lost a child. So then, you try again and think, okay, then maybe this time it'll work because, I got over the last one. It's okay. But the first thing that creeps in is more of those thoughts and worries and fears because, well, what happened last time? And so it's not truly ever gone. It didn't go anywhere. And so then
Right.
you do it again and again, and it's still there. It's never left. Even
So did
today.
you
Oh, go ahead.
did you for a long time believe that it was just time that would make you feel better?
Yeah, because I guess I didn't know any better. That's just what everybody told me is, everything will get better in time.
Right. Well, now you've learned that it's what you do with time that
Right.
really heals, right? I always tell the story. So if people have heard this, I apologize, but I tell the story of getting a flat tire on a road. Like if you get a flat tire, you can't just get out of the car and sit on the side of the road and think that it's going to reinflate. Like you'll be sitting there for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the tool or the actions you take within time that heal our heart, and it's the actions you take that allow you to drive on your tire again, not just sitting there. So time
Mhm.
is going to pass no matter what we do, but it's
Yeah.
it's the things that we do in that time that either allow us to heal or they keep us stuck.
And so often we do just that. We keep ourselves stuck because we're waiting for some miracle cure. Because I mean, it's supposed to go away. Somehow this is supposed to change itself without me taking responsibility for it and making the action step to make it slow down and stop hurting me so much.
And I love that you just said that. We have to take responsibility. We need to take ownership, right? We can't just expect that things are going to magically happen in our life. We have to do something. You know, I know, Janna, you do the same thing. Ask people, is there anything that has happened in the last year that still weighs on your heart? And, everyone says yes. And then you go to 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and people are still saying, yes, this happened 20 years ago, and I am still suffering with this pain. And so that's a great example of how it's not just time that takes our pain away, it's what we do with that time. Because I know people that things have happened, 5 years ago, and they have done the healing work and they don't experience that pain anymore. Sadness, yes, maybe, but not the pain. And then somebody else who has the same loss, and yes, all losses are unique, all relationships are unique, but there's a big difference with the people who decide to do something during that time versus those that just sit and wait to feel better.
Unfortunately, I think there's so many that feel there's kind of like the magical weight loss pill with grief as well. Like, you're going to hand me this and you're going to do it for me, and I won't have to do any of this. I won't have to relive it. I don't have to talk about it. It just magically disappears. And unfortunately, even though time passes, no, nothing magically is going to disappear. This is one of the things I know that frustrates a lot of my clients too, is that yes, something bad did happen to you, and I'm sorry, even if somebody did do this to you, you didn't necessarily deserve that. However,
Right.
you do have to take the ownership, and you have to say, moving forward, I'm not going to live this way. I need to do something different. One of my favorite quotes that I like to do is, doing the same thing over and over every day and expecting different results is by definition insanity. And so if we're living that way, what are we expecting out of our future if we're living expecting something to change with no action on our part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I can relate because, when I was a teenager, one of my first relationships ended up being an abusive relationship. And it was very painful for me. But I thought, when I got out of that and married someone who's a very kind man, that it would heal my heart from what had happened to me. But it didn't. And what actually happened is I took that pain and that anger and that sadness into my marriage because I didn't realize that I needed to take any action to heal that pain because I just thought, well, this is a new relationship with a new person, and so I'll just feel better. But I didn't feel better. And I carried that not only into that marriage, but into other relationships. And it was very devastating to my life because I saw myself as I was a victim. This happened to me. And so why do I need to take any ownership? Well, we talk about you don't need to take ownership for the fact that, you were a victim in whatever happened to you, but you do need to take ownership for the pain that you still have and that you aren't making the choice to heal. You aren't making the choice to reach out and, find those tools that'll help you heal your heart. So that's where the responsibility lies.
I agree wholeheartedly. I know in my deepest parts, like I had the same thing as childhood relationships, even in high school, when you think about, your first love and that kind of thing, where, people don't necessarily mean to cause us harm, but they
Mm-hmm.
do in some of our childish ways, whether it be, cheating on each other, whatever it is. You learn those harder ways and you carry them forward, and without even acknowledging they're moving into these new relationships, your expectations are at that level as well with, well, this person hurt me, so yeah, this new person's probably going to do the same. And you kind of
Mm-hmm.
numb yourself to it with, this is what I expect now. Well, apparently this is all I deserve because this is how I've continued to be treated. And like you said, getting into that victim mentality of, well, everybody's doing this to me, and why are they doing this to me? Is this all I deserve? Am I no good? It's easy to fall down those bad rabbit holes when in reality, I know personally I had to get to the point where I was absolutely sick and tired of living in that mental stress of, well, I only deserve this bad stuff, and saying,
Mm-hmm.
no, I know I deserve more. I'm tired of listening to this talk from myself. I'm tired of being this miserable. Something's got to change. So
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard to get out of that victim mentality. And for those that are listening, if you're there, I'm so sorry that whatever happened to you put you in that state. But if I
Mm-hmm.
can ask a one thing of you is to just, put your hand over your heart and tell yourself you are good enough and you are worthy. And just
Yeah.
find a way to step out of that. Say, I'm not going to be a victim anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of my own BS, is one of my favorite sayings, and I'm stepping forward. I'm going to change it starting today.
Mm-hmm. And you deserve better. If someone or something has hurt you, you don't need to put yourself in your own prison for the rest of your life. Like, you
Yes.
deserve freedom from your emotional pain. And so it's so important to, do what you can, reach out for support in any way, and look for tools to help you heal that pain, because otherwise it becomes our identity. And Janna and I love to talk about this because we see it all over our lives, that we take on these identities based on what's happened to us. Well, I'm the one that's lost a child. Well, I'm the one that's, gone through a divorce. I'm the one that's had an abusive relationship. I'm the one that has alcoholism in my family, whatever it is. And that becomes so deeply ingrained as our identity that we start functioning out of that identity versus who we really are, which is a whole person. And so, I know, Janna, you can relate to this.
Hands down. Unfortunately, my identity was definitely the I lost a child, I lost multiple children, and that's how people knew me. That's how people referred to me. Even if they weren't referring to me that way, that's how I assumed. Oh, well, they've heard about me and they know this is who I am. So getting into that space again is pretty easy because you don't recognize you're getting there.
Right.
It's hard to get out of it because you are so consumed by this is who I am that it's scary for growth and the uncertainty of not knowing how you're going to define yourself moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
so I recognize that it is a very scary thing. So kudos for you for trying and moving forward anyway. And it's okay to be uncertain. You don't have to have a definition of who you are today. That's the joy of this life, is you can work every day to redefine and find something that you love, enjoy, and are comfortable with. Today you might be the hiker, the outdoorsman. You might have even changed careers, and today you're a nurse instead of a school teacher. That's okay. Absolutely okay. It's just taking that first step to get out of that old definition, and it's scary.
It's very scary, especially when, our social network, you know,
Mhm.
is built around whatever has happened to us, right?
Mhm.
Because we attract people who've, like, if we've lost a child, others who have lost a child. So all of a sudden, our whole social network is people who have lost children. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. That is supportive, but that's not everything that we are. We are so much more, and we have so many gifts to share with the world. And I think oftentimes we limit ourselves based on our past life experiences.
Oh yeah, and like you said, even if you have a whole circle of people that has had this same loss and you're working to support each other, that's great. But when we take, that definition point of, oh, we've all lost children and that's all we focus on all day every day, we're not really truly growing and supporting each other. We're staying stuck in our loss, thinking that again time will change this. And really,
Mm-hmm.
we need to start focusing more on what it is we can do for each other to help bring joy and understanding back into our life so that we're no longer stuck in that worst moment of our life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It breaks my heart. I mean, I know people who went through a divorce 30 years ago and they're still very bitter,
Mm-hmm.
angry, um, and hurt. And it's such a great example how you can't just keep going through life without addressing all of those emotions, looking at them, finding tools to process them so you can heal and get to the other side and find joy again. Because why do we want to stay stuck in that pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a place that we thrive. So, finding those ways, being willing to take that step forward, being willing to be emotionally honest, that's such a hard thing for so many of us because it's scary. We don't want to feel. because it hurt the first time. So why do we want to feel all that again? But the truth is, like you and I talk about all the time, Janna, is the pain is always there. We just think it's not. We're trying to forget that the pain is there and that it's affecting our life, but it's always affecting our life until we choose to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And with also trying to build your circle, just a reminder too, you're going to grow in different ways and you're going to have to set healthy boundaries. You're going to reach points where stuff that didn't bother you before, like people constantly bringing it up. Oh yeah, remember when you did this? Remember when you did this? It didn't bother you. You just let it go because you didn't want to hurt feelings if you said anything. You're going to get to a point where it does bother you, and you have to be, like you said, emotionally honest and stand up for yourself and just say, you know what? I don't really want to talk about this anymore. That's not who I am today. And that's okay. That's a huge step. Again, kudos to you for getting to that next step, because you're healing and you're calling in new people that are more than willing to continue helping you heal and continuing moving up the ladder to the next level of healing, where you have joy and understanding and excitement in your life, but yet you can still manage, say, like in my experience with my child, a birthday coming up. You still know it's going to be a sad day, but you can come at it from a different perspective now with, what, let's, light a candle, let's let some balloons go, let's celebrate the life that was here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that is such a shift when we can get to that point versus being stuck in the intense grief, right? And pain. When we can look at the gifts and we can look at those memories that we want to hold dear to our heart and to celebrate that relationship, right? So we just wanted to, talk about this myth today because almost everyone believes that grief heals within time. And we want you to understand that that is totally a myth, something that we learned because our parents and society believed it and they didn't know differently. But take a look at your life. Look at those things that are still hurting your heart that happened a long time ago. And you will see that it's not time that helps you heal. And with that, choose to take step forwards like we've talked about. Choose to look at those emotions. Choose to look at those really sticky areas so that you can have a more fruitful life, a more joyful life. And I'd love to say at the end of this episode is listen to last week's episode, because it's actually my husband and I talking about our relationship, about where we started and all the hurt we brought into our relationship before we had the tools to heal, and how our relationship has completely changed because we've been able to heal all those things that we both thought should be healed with time, but realized it required actual tools. So go back and listen to that episode. It has some great points in it that I think will be helpful for you. And Janna and I are going to keep talking about the different myths. There's 6 of them. So stay tuned for upcoming conversations about these myths. And please, if today's episode spoke to your heart, we'd love for you to subscribe, share it with loved ones, leave a comment. And until next time, please be gentle with yourself. Keep healing one step at a time. And remember, you don't have to walk this journey alone. Thank you for joining us this week on Heart Healing Conversations.